So with the recent announcement of the Naruto TCG coming out in 2027, there has been a massive debate sparked around the longevity of investment potential for the One Piece TCG. Are the cards that we've been talking about here on this channel and that you and I have been investing in at risk of coming down? Is a crash imminent? Well, we're going to get into all of that in today's video, and to spice things up, we're also going to be talking about the Dragon Ball Super Fusion Worlds cards as well, because I just like to get a little crazy. We're going to look at all three of these giant IPs, these animes that we have grown up and loved, to see if the One Piece TCG is in trouble or not. Before we get into it, guys, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I would love to get some of your guys' comments and insights as well, because you know what, we're a community, and I think this would be a great opportunity to have a great conversation around this topic. But without any further ado, guys, let's get into it. Let's start things off with the Naruto TCG news. So obviously there's been a lot of hype around the Naruto TCG. People are really excited. Some of these cards look absolutely fantastic. And just pausing here, we can see that there's a Naruto and Sasuke card that look like a combination of like a manga card and an SB card. And to be quite frank with you, I actually do find that very fascinating because One Piece has not done that. So it is interesting to see them kind of take two types of rarities, two types of textured cards, and mix them together. Now, are they just copying and pasting One Piece? That I'm just going to leave up to you guys. However, when we get a closer look at some of these cards, we can definitely tell that Bandai is yet again proving to be a top tier company when it comes to the texturing for their cards. These cards look absolutely fantastic. Lots of different artists, lots of great artwork. This Tsunade reminds me of the illustration box volumes 1 and 2 art with the Nami, the Boa. You know what I'm talking about. And I think overall the cards just look absolutely fantastic. But obviously, with this recent announcement, a lot of people are getting a little skeptical about the future of the One Piece TCG. And guys, this is kind of where I wanted to go with this. I wanted to show you that first, and I wanted to take a step back into the Dragon Ball Z stuff. I will admit, I have been eyeing these cards a little more as of late. You know, I remember kind of critiquing Dragon Ball's cards a little bit because they all just started kind of looking the same to me. They kind of just had this blast type looking card. You know, I wasn't too pleased with it. I mean, there was quite a few versions of this happening, and I know it's Dragon Ball Z. I know what you're going to say. That's what they do. They blast, okay? And fair enough. And then, of course, you know, they introduced the manga boosters and stuff like that, and they started adding variations and stuff, and of course, now we have serialized cards, so they've definitely begun to step up their game. And to be honest with you guys, I've started to change my mind. They're really starting to make great cards, and I really like the look of the Dragon Ball Super Fusion Worlds outlook, especially with this Son Goku card. This is a fantastic looking card, but I'm not here to give any kind of non-financial investment advice on this card game. We're here to talk about One Piece. What I mainly want to talk about here is the fact that we are currently looking at the most expensive cards in the Dragon Ball Super Fusion World card game. The most expensive card, guys, is a little shy of $6,000, and we are talking about a serialized Goku card with the Dragon Balls on the card, okay? This is peak. This is absolute peak for any Dragon Ball Z fan, guys. You know, this is the perfect recipe for a top-tier grail in Dragon Ball Super Fusion World. But I'd like to bring your attention now to One Piece. We can see here that our top serialized card is, of course, this Ace, which I'm a little surprised to see. And I'm also going to tell you right now, this isn't the truth, because we've seen much more expensive cards sell on eBay. And we're talking about Treasure Cup cards. We're talking about a lot of things. But just for the sake of comparison, this card is roughly $10,000. And then, of course, as we go down the list, we've got the Uta Treasure Cup card from 2025, $9,000. The Red Bull Luffy card, basically $9,000. The Rebecca Treasure Cup card, $8,000, so on and so forth. There's a lot of money in the One Piece TCG right now. So I'm not trying to necessarily start off by saying One Piece is better, go suck it if you like Dragon Ball. I'm not saying that at all. I like Dragon Ball Z. I like Super. I think the cards are super awesome, and if you're a big fan of Dragon Ball Z and all that sort of stuff, this is the time, I think, to really take a look at some of these cards, because they are pretty nice. And, you know, there are Treasure Cup cards, you could say. There's championship cards in this card game as well, which I think have massive potential. But again, I don't think, guys, that this card game is going to threaten the One Piece TCG, just like I don't think the Naruto card game announcement is going to necessarily have a massive impact on the One Piece TCG. Now, I want to get into more information about why I believe this, and it's not just because of the price of the cards right now. So let's just take a step back real quick and put some things into perspective. So Dragon Ball Super ended in March of 2018. And don't get me wrong, I thought Super was fantastic. It was a fantastic comeback for the series. And I know Dragon Ball Daima is currently out as well, but I haven't looked into that yet. I haven't watched it yet. There hasn't been too much hype around Daima. I mean, Super was definitely where things were like really picking up and still fantastic time. But again, 2018. That was what? That was 8 years ago. Okay? Take that in consideration. Naruto Shippuden ended in 2017, right? So obviously there's Boruto. We don't need to talk about Boruto, okay? Naruto ended in 2017. Now, prolific IPs, absolutely phenomenal shows and mangas, and no hate. I love them all. But One Piece is still ongoing, guys. These shows have all started from like the 80s for Dragon Ball Z, and One Piece was in the 90s, and Naruto, I believe, was, if not the late 90s, the early 2000s. And, they've all ended except for One Piece. One Piece is still alive and well. And while Naruto and Dragon Ball Z still exist, and while there's still a huge fan base for these series and for these IPs, One Piece is just still got anticipation. There is still mystery, and there is still growth to be had for the story itself. There are still new characters being introduced. We still don't know how the series ends. We still have so many unanswered questions that are still being answered by Oda himself as time goes on. I never once thought, as a 32-year-old man, I would be so excited to call one of my buddies every single time we read the latest chapter of a manga. We are absolutely on the edge of our seats every freaking time, and the fact that we're at the end of Elbaf and there is still more to come is just incredible. It's just incredible that we are almost at 30 years of this show, of this manga, of this story, and I still feel like a kid talking about One Piece. It's just absolutely exciting. It's absolutely phenomenal. Now, when it comes to like the playability of the game, I've never played Dragon Ball Fusion World. I've never played it, and I don't really know how the Naruto game works. I don't really want to compare that to the One Piece game. However, if you haven't played the One Piece TCG, it is quite fun. The characters do tend to have abilities, especially the leader cards, that relate to the characters, which is great. And, certain decks and certain builds can really kind of feel like they are manifestations of the character's abilities from the show and all that stuff as well, which is really awesome. The other thing, too, I want to point out is that Oda himself is one of the top 10, okay, fiction writers of all time. Top 10, guys, okay? Again, not trying to show any hate or say one is better than the other, but you cannot deny the facts, guys. One Piece is the most popular comic manga of all time right now, okay? Of all time. And it only is going to continue to grow. There's just so much potential still for the One Piece TCG, and that stuff matters, okay? Look at Digimon. Digimon, when it first came out back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, Digimon was an incredible IP. I loved Digimon. Who didn't? Who remembers going to the Digimon movie as a kid? I do. And I remember them giving out cards, and it was just such... Or was that Yu-Gi-Oh? I might be mixing two things up. But regardless, the Digimon movie was so hype. I don't know why they put the Angela Anaconda thing in there. Maybe that's just coming from a Canadian, but it was an incredible time. And it's kind of been heartbreaking to see that Digimon has been struggling to maintain its relevance in this market now. It is still alive, it is still doing its thing, but it just doesn't feel as big as, say, Pokemon or, One Piece or Naruto or all that sort of stuff. And we can see that has highly impacted the TCG for Digimon, which is, by the way, also under Bandai's control. And the fact that all these anime IPs are under Bandai is a little concerning, but in the same breath, it does in a way kind of balance it does kind of cap the ceiling. It does kind of contain everything in a nice little box. So as long as Bandai doesn't mess this up, which they've had a history of doing, but as long as they don't mess this up for these IPs, we should be good. But what I'm really trying to say here, guys, is that, relevance is really important. And although, again, Dragon Ball Z and Super and Dragon Ball, like, I loved Dragon Ball, like, the first part of the series. Like, as long as, like, these will always be nostalgic, historic, monumental pieces of history that we've all loved and shared. We have emotional attachments to the characters. Who doesn't love Goku? Who doesn't love Vegeta? Talk about character development. And that can all be said with Naruto as well. Like, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Jiraiya. I'm not going to say anything if you haven't watched Shippuden, but like, Shippuden's been fantastic. It's just been an absolute ride for Naruto. Naruto is in the same camp as all of these IPs. Like, it hurts me to try and, put them all together and say, oh, this one's better than the other. But the fact is, One Piece is alive and well. It is unfinished. It has just grown exponentially. We are still getting new episodes. It is still ongoing. And there are plenty of new people coming into this as well because of that. One of the most interesting things I've seen in the One Piece community take place over the last year or so was when, like, book talk, like, people who read books, who don't really read anime or mangas and stuff, they started getting into One Piece and they started adding their own opinions, which I thought was really interesting because we're starting to see like celebrities now. I heard The Weeknd just started getting into One Piece. He just bought some boxes. I'm waiting for when Adam Sandler starts getting into One Piece, okay? Like, Jim Carrey, maybe not Jim Carrey, but Adam Sandler, like, let's go, okay? Imagine Adam Sandler opening up a box of OP05 on a live stream. Yeah, we got the Gear 5 Luffy! Yeah! I don't know. It'd be crazy. But regardless, guys, One Piece has become very mainstream, which is really disorienting for somebody who remembers when barely anyone talked about One Piece, like, not even that long ago, like maybe like 6 years ago, before 2020. It definitely wasn't talked about too much. But anyways, I could talk about this all day. The point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to the cards and the longevity and investment potential of One Piece, I do think as of right now, One Piece has the strongest grounds to stand on. I do think when the Naruto TCG comes out, there is definitely going to be a little bit of a dip or a shift because there is a lot of people in One Piece right now because it's where the money's at. And we will see people who are not attached to One Piece at all jump ship to the next shiny thing because that's just what they're at. They're looking for the money. But I really do think One Piece has the best grounds to stand on. I do think the Naruto TCG looks good. I am excited for it. I will probably buy some cards. I'm not going to lie to you. And I also want to remind you that the Dragon Ball Super Fusion Worlds cards are great too. And although I haven't played the card game yet, I think some of these cards actually look quite fantastic. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I have actually started buying some of these cards. I actually recently just bought the Son Goku Championship 2024 to 2025 Regionals card, okay? It's a Regionals, and it was from the first Regionals for Fusion Worlds. So, and I got it at a pretty good price, as you can see. It's only $400 US from the most recent sale. Now, that is changing, so keep that in mind. But, like, guys, there are grails for the Dragon Ball card game that are still affordable. But that's not financial advice. None of this is financial advice. But I hope if you're a One Piece maxi like me, this gave you a little bit of hope. Anyways, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Gonna try and post a few more videos before I move. I'm gonna be moving real soon, so this background will change. But, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. A video should pop on the screen. Be sure to click it, and I will see you over there.